Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Hi, everyone. Today we are speaking with Dr. Diane McIntosh. Dr. McIntosh is a psychiatrist and author of the national bestseller, This is Depression. And she's also the Chief Neuroscience Officer at TELUS and a welcomed regular guest here on our podcast. So good to see you again, Diane. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tamara.
I want to talk about anxiety and vaccines today and how a lot of people are feeling anxious about this sort of mass vaccination that we're seeing happen worldwide. Are you seeing people that are anxious about the vaccine?
Well, I think in general, most people feel very hopeful about the vaccine because they realize this is our fastest way possible to get back to some semblance of a normal life, whether that's traveling or being able to hug your grandparent. So I think most people do realize that we need these vaccines, and they have in fact been developed in record, earth-shatteringly fast time compared to how long it normally takes to be able to get a vaccine. But I think when you look back over from the start of this coronavirus, from the start of the pandemic, there were a number of factors that have led people who are a little bit fearful to be even more fearful of this vaccine. That's because when this is a novel coronavirus, meaning we had never seen this before as a medical community. So when the pandemic started, people thought, or the scientists really treated it like other coronaviruses we know about. So we know that there's some coronaviruses that cause just the cold, and there are other coronaviruses that cause the last SARS problem that we had, but this was a novel one. So at the beginning, scientists were saying fomite spread, which means spread from surfaces, and everyone's washing like crazy. But as they learned more information, as more and more people were infected, and scientists around the world had an opportunity to examine this particular virus, they started to realize it was very different than other coronaviruses. To me, that's a good news story. As the scientists started to realize that this was different, they shared that. And for me, I feel relief, right? There's this open dialogue, there's honesty, and they're saying, wait a minute, we told you this, but now we've learned that. But for people who are a little on the anxious side around things like this and struggle with their trust in the scientific world and the medical community, that created this sort of vacuum of information and made people fearful, and was really rich ground, rich fertilizer for conspiracy theories. That this isn't a real virus, that people aren't really sick, and that feeds into this whole vaccine thing. A lot of the conspiracy theories that are coming out of fear related to the vaccine.
We know how vaccines are, the most incredible invention, discovery of modern history, saved millions of lives for various different horrific diseases. So when it comes to this one, I think that people think, oh, well, they just came up with this vaccine in like the last 5 minutes. I mean, but I'm going to assume this is something that researchers and scientists have been working towards for years. It's not like they started at ground zero from, like last March.
There's so much to what you just said, Tamara. First of all, you're absolutely right about vaccines being amongst the most important public health discoveries of world history, along with clean drinking water, the importance of clean drinking water, and antibiotics, right? They've changed the trajectory of the world by having vaccinations. The vaccinations most of us are used to, certainly the ones that I learned about when I was in medical school, they are different than the coronavirus vaccinations that we have now. The old ones had a little bit of the virus actually in them that was live virus, or it was denatured or deactivated virus. But when you gave an injection of a vaccination in the past, you'd be putting a little bit of that virus inside someone, and then you build antibodies. It gets your immune system active. You make antibodies. So if you're around someone who has measles, for instance, you may get the measles virus in you, but you have already antibodies to fight it off so you don't get sick. The new vaccinations that we have for the coronavirus that causes COVID-19, these are called mRNA vaccines, and they're brand new. They're a new innovation, But scientists have been working with mRNA for 30 years. First of all, we've known about RNA forever. It is genetic material. We have RNA in us, and some viruses are DNA viruses. We also have DNA, and some are RNA viruses. So this coronavirus is an RNA virus. But what the scientists have done is they've been able to take a little bit of the virus, a little bit of its RNA, and when they inject it in us, our immune system creates antibodies to a piece of the virus. So it uses our immune system to help to create those antibodies so that if we're exposed to the virus, we're able to fight it off because we've made these antibodies. But it doesn't change us. That RNA doesn't get into our RNA. It doesn't change who we are. As a matter of fact, our body quickly gets rid of the what has been injected in us, but our immune system uses that over a short period of time to make antibodies to protect us.
Around this pandemic, there's been so much conspiracy, right? And we've seen it, I think, a lot over the last 4 years or so about conspiracies and stuff. But with this virus, it's really like I've noticed it a lot more online, and people being called sheep. Where does that come from? I mean, you're a psychiatrist, so when you look at conspiracy, people who believe in these wild ideas, I think they're quite dangerous. Where does that come from?
I think it comes from a need to control, a need to have a sense of control over your life. And right now we're in an unprecedented, in almost everyone's lifetime, an unprecedented situation where governments are saying, you can't travel. We don't want you to hang out with your friends. And so for some individuals, having an explanation, even though for people like me might find that explanation makes no sense and has no science to back it up, for some people, there is a comfort in having an explanation, even if it's an explanation that doesn't make any sense. And that's why I bring up the point that this coronavirus, this situation was fertilizer for conspiracy theories, because there was a lot we didn't know at the beginning. And scientists had to learn quickly. And we also had governments in different parts of the world that were kind of fueling that. And then we had the whole macho thing about it. It's not macho to wear a mask, which also contributed to the spread. So we had people in high places talking about conspiracy theories. We had people not believing the scientists, actually devaluing the science and talking about things that made no sense at all. And then also encouraging people not to do the very basic things you can do to protect yourself and the people you love. That was a toxic stew that has created a far worse situation than we need it to be in.
What do you recommend to people who friends have different views than them, or their family has different views than them, and this can cause a lot of anger, and it can really fracture relationships?
Like most physicians, I am very much a pro-vaccination person, and I think that unfortunately the medical community allowed this anti-vax movement to develop out of very poor science. So there was a physician who published a paper many years ago, I believe it was in the Lancet, about measles vaccine, so MMR being responsible for autism. This has been completely debunked. The man lost his license. It has been retracted. There has probably been no treatment more studied than the MMR vaccine, and the association between vaccines and autism. It is just not the case. It's not even the vaccine itself, but even all of the additives have been tested, and there is no research at all. But what happened was a couple of people jumped on this. Autism is awful. And, for families, why did this happen? My beautiful child now has this disability. And then you have a few TV stars or important people that get on TV and kind of grab onto that. And this gives people a reason, an explanation. The problem is that we require herd immunity to keep everyone else safe, the people who can't be vaccinated. We want to keep those people who are immunocompromised, very young, safe, and that happens through herd immunity. But if people stop vaccinating their kids, we lose herd immunity, and that makes those individuals much more vulnerable. You can die from measles. You can die from chickenpox. So the reason we need to vaccinate is to protect the most vulnerable among us.
I do find it very dangerous and scary. And Diane, I do have people in my circle that don't believe in vaccines, and it's been really shocking to me, especially with all the scientific evidence we have, right? Especially when it comes to this pandemic and this virus. And so, is it better for me to just walk away, or is it better for me to try to convince them otherwise?
We know the research shows us that the best way to engage someone in the whole concept of vaccinations is through education, not through being dismissive. Or as much as I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that I hear from people, that I try not to ever demonstrate sort of any kind of really negativity in a mean way about that, because we're not going to get anywhere that way. And there's also evidence when people are stuck to conspiracy theories, that someone, you trying to talk your uncle into that's not true, 9/11 really happened, the moon landing's real, all that they're not going to listen. But the right professional having a conversation, that a doctor that you trust, a nurse practitioner you believe in, them taking the time to have an educational conversation in a thoughtful way, and explaining to them step by step why that's important, not just to them, but to their children, to their community. One of the sad things over the last few years, and I'm sure you've seen this too, Tamara, is we've gone from really thinking about our whole community, the people around us, and becoming very self-centered. It's all about me, how much money I have, how much this, how much that. It's all about me. And we really do, as a society, have to think about the health of all of us, right? And people, don't tell me I have to wear a mask. The government can't tell me about what to do. Well, if you stop at a stop sign, that's the government telling you what to do. We all have to work together, and we have to have some basic human behaviors that help to live us to live safely together. And one of them right now is wearing a mask, right? Generally, we agree that we stop at stop signs and we pay our bills. And right now we got to wear a mask and be safe. And we do need to be vaccinated in order for us to be able to get back to life.
There is no vaccination for kids yet. So is that what you mean when you say, when adults get vaccinated, we then protect everybody around us? So if I get vaccinated, I therefore am protecting my kids as best as I can, because there is no vaccination for kids.
And there will be a vaccination for kids before too long. It's just when new treatments come along, and this one at lightning speed, that we don't start with trying it out on pregnant women and little kids, right? We try on adults, and then we get a sense, okay, it's safe in adults. Now we can move to other populations to ensure the safety. So we start at the least likely to have any kind of negative outcomes. But ultimately, I expect that all of these vaccinations will be used in children as well. The most vulnerable groups in our society are, of course, related to the coronavirus, are older people. So 95% of people who have died are in the over 70 set, I think is what the data is, depending on the population. But we also know that for serious illnesses where vaccinations are generally required, really young kids under the age of 1, pregnant women who have reduced immunity because we don't want their immune system attacking the baby, which is foreign inside them. So their immune systems are dampened down, as well as people that have certain illnesses or on medication that affect their immune system. So they're immunocompromised. So when we all are vaccinated, the herd immunity means that it removes the virus from the community, that there's enough people vaccinated, that there's no one or a very small group for the virus to spread around in, and that keeps us all safe. We're vaccinated, and those few people that can't be, it's okay, because there's enough people vaccinated that the virus has nowhere to go. We all hope that could happen by natural means, right? Everyone got it, and we didn't have to vaccinate. But the death rate with this virus is so high that we just can't. And Sweden tried it, right? They said, let's all get sick and we'll be okay. And now they've had catastrophic results. So we know that this is a kind of virus that requires a vaccine. We just can't let all of our elderly people and vulnerable people and now young people die from this until we've got a natural immunity. The cost is too high. But now we have a vaccine, and soon we will be able to demonstrate it's safe in kids. Until then, every adult needs to get vaccinated when their turn comes up.
I want to talk about, the importance of vaccination for our collective mental health. But before we get to that, I know you know this, that one of the ways that TELUS is hoping to, give back and find some way to help others in our community is to give a little bit of money on behalf of our guests on this podcast to something that is near and dear to our guests. And so we will be giving $500 to the BC Schizophrenia Society. And I know you've told us before why you chose them a while ago, but can you remind us why they are so important to you?
Well, I think that there are two groups in our society that are most vulnerable and that we do as a community need to make sure that we're taking care of. One group is seniors. And we've all seen what has happened with people living in care. This has been going on for a very long time, but the virus, this pandemic, has really pulled back the veil and showed us the vulnerability of seniors living in these assisted living kind of facilities. The other group are people who have very severe and persistent mental illnesses. And that is particularly the case with individuals who have schizophrenia. And so if this opportunity, which I'm very grateful for, to provide this donation to the BC Schizophrenia Society, because they work hard to for research and supporting research into schizophrenia so that another individual and their family doesn't suffer from this devastating illness.
Well, we're happy to give them $500 on your behalf. So thank you for that. I will add another group to what you just said, Diane, and that would be, disabled people in this country, because that is, another group that really feels pretty ignored. And I think that most of those seniors in long-term care homes are also disabled. And we know this. And so, again, I have a son with a disability. This is, we need to protect the people who don't have access right now to vaccinations or, being safe in school or whatever it might be. So this is such great information. So when we talk about vaccinations and our collective mental health, like, what is that connection?
We have been living in a situation that is made to provoke anxiety and depression. This is chronic, unpredictable stress that we've all been living under. And actually, if you're doing research in animals and looking at an impact of a particular treatment, the way that you provoke provoke depression is by causing chronic, unpredictable stress. So it is a rat model for depression. When I say chronic, unpredictable stress, I mean that we all didn't know where this pandemic was going to take us, how deadly it was going to be, how could we protect ourselves. Particularly in the beginning, it was very scary, and especially for frontline healthcare workers, first responders. So we've been living in this, when are we going to get out of this? What's going to happen next, for a long time? And that's made us all vulnerable to depression, to anxiety. I call it the COVID-19 trifecta. We have health anxiety. We're worried about our own health, the health of our loved ones, the health of the community. We have financial anxiety. Maybe you've lost your job, your loved one has. Maybe you're worried your RSPs are coming up and what's going to happen with my retirement. And then we have this isolation and loneliness. So we're all facing various degrees of those three, and that's made us all vulnerable to depression and anxiety. The thing we can control is protecting ourselves and getting vaccinated. That's what's going to get us out of this situation the most quickly. But we can't diminish the fact that being lonely has a powerful impact on our mental health, being chronically anxious and having financial stress. And so this is not just a health pandemic, this is a mental health pandemic. And our way to safety is getting us vaccinated and back to work, back to life, back to love as quickly as we can be.
When we see things on the news, if we're already feeling this, loneliness and stress about, finances or whatever it might be, like you said, our health of the people we love, those around us. When we watch the news sometimes, or listen to the news, or read the news, it's overwhelming, to say the least, right? Because we're not only seeing what's happening maybe in our city or province or country or continent or worldwide, and it just becomes all consuming. But then on the other hand, we're also seeing, oh, these vaccinations aren't coming, and these ones are, and these ones aren't, and oh, now it's this many days and that. And it's just this constant barrage of not good news. I mean, is your solution or suggestion, I should say, to be like, okay, you just stop watching stuff? Or is it that easy?
Yes.
I mean, it does help, right?
It's a huge thing. And I think many of us have just come through an election situation where maybe we were watching too much. It's the same thing where, we're worried about what's going to happen. We're worried about the coronavirus and pandemic and getting our vaccines. So if you feel like you have to get some news, set aside 30 minutes a day, pick one broadcast or one way to get it, and that's it. Because the people that are, they're really obsessed with it, it does make things worse. I am a newsie. I like reading the newspaper. I like watching the news, and I've had to stop because I cannot only read or hear about negative things all the time. So I give myself this much time, 30 minutes, watch the newscast. That's it. Because I can't do it all the time. And I'm not a lover of social media, so I've never been out there. I'm very, very cautious about how much I expose myself to. It impacts your brain. It's not good for your level of anxiety.
I think that those of us that have maybe taken a break from social media or taken a break from, we know that what you just said is 100% the truth. And I could not agree with you more. But I'll also admit it's really difficult to do sometimes. I am better if I don't look at Twitter. I'm a healthier person mentally if I don't look at Twitter, but I can't help myself. And I trick myself by thinking, oh, I just need to find out what's happening, or I just want to see what this person said, or I need to read this one article. And it's really hard to do, isn't it? Would you describe that as self-care, to sort of pull back from this overload of information?
I would absolutely call it self-care, but also that if you're doing it all the time and you want to stop or move towards stopping, sometimes it's really hard to just do it cold turkey. So making a plan for yourself. First of all, asking yourself, what's the good that's coming out of here? What is the win? I talked to young people who have started vaping, and I'm like, where do you expect this is going to take you in your life? What's the outcome you're looking for here? And it's really hard to find a silver lining to that vaping cloud. There's no good that comes out of that. And you should, anything you're doing that maybe this isn't the best thing for me, having that serious conversation about where am I expecting this to take me in the next 5 to 10 years, and ask yourself, what's the value you're getting from that? The other thing I always tell you with people, whether they're trying to lose weight, change their diet, whatever it is in a lifestyle thing, taking little bites. If stopping it cold turkey is too much, then saying I'll give myself this amount of time, and I'm going to get rid of people that give negativity in my life or whatever, slowly kind of weaning back and setting yourself out a path or a journey for where you want to go.
I love it. It's always great speaking with you, Dr. McIntosh. I love it. I love our conversations. You can find out more about Dr. McIntosh's work on her website, drdianemcintosh.com. And don't forget, you can get her book wherever you find books. And I am sure we will be speaking again soon. Thank you so much, Diane. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us again.
Thanks, Tamara. Take care.
Thanks for listening to another episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Be sure to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for another conversation. You can also check out our website, telus.com/podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TELUS Talks.